Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Actually Authentic podcast with myself, Candace.
And Awanda, how are you?
And today we are so excited because for episode 5, we have a very, very special guest with us. She's just absolutely amazing. But I'm going to let her introduce herself so she can tell us a little bit about herself.
Okay, thank you guys, first of all, for having me on. I appreciate it. I tune into all your episodes. I'm like, please look at this podcast. It's amazing. And y'all are really authentic. So I really do appreciate that. My name is Amber Manning. I am a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner. I have been for 12 years, 13 years. I've been a nurse for almost 23 years. I have experience in all different specialties, but my love specialty is holistic and integrative medicine. My favorite group of people to work with is women, specifically Black women. Those are my favorite population to work with because there's so many intricacies within Black culture and our health that can be interconnected and can be cured at a preventative level. So I absolutely love that. I've been doing that for a while. I own Affinity Wellness and Consultants. It's a functional wellness practice. So what we do is we work with people at the root cause level to see why they are where they are and get them reversed. It could be with nutrition, it could be through stress management, it could be through supplementation, exercise. I primarily say if you want a prescription for a medicine, you got the wrong doctor. Go see somebody else.
Mhm.
I often also say that I only prescribe 5 medications, and those are ones that come from God. So those will be nutrition, stress management, outside activity, sunshine therapy. All these things help your body to heal itself on its own time.
Good. So we invited you on here because we want to talk about all things regarding how health affects relationships.
Yes.
Of course, Candace and I have our perspective and our experience, but we definitely wanted to hear, what you have to say on the topic
Yes.
and dive right in.
I think it's a thing, first of all, that people don't realize that there's a link between relationships and health. And it's an ongoing underlying theme in the background of their lives. Like you don't realize, like, okay, um, maybe I'm binge eating now. You don't even recognize binge. You just think you eat fast and a lot at one time because you were told to finish your plate as a kid. Or you didn't have enough food at home when you were a kid. Your mom had food stamps, or you didn't have enough money growing up. So you don't realize how that plays a part into your decision making and how your relationships with your own personal relationships, work relationships work. Like you might be a person that be like, oh, everybody's ordering out at work, and you're like, no, I can't order out. And they're like, oh, you're just, she'll never order out, she'll never join with us. And it's not that, it's something else deeper underlying.
Right.
Okay.
Agreed.
Yeah. I never thought about that. I never thought about that. What
Yeah.
about? I'm sure you have people that come in, right, and maybe they're going through a health scare, they're going through a health condition. What do you see as the differences with someone that maybe has a supportive partner versus a non-supportive partner?
That makes a huge difference. I just got, not to give too much information with this lady's case and what she had going on, but she was told she was pre-diabetic and ignored her symptoms or complaints. She go forward like 5 years. She's like binge eating, like especially at night. She's working night shift. She crashes her car, and she was told she was like her blood sugar was like 600. She blacked out.
Oh, my.
This time frame when she's recovering, because she was off of work for a long period of time, it really hit home with her and her husband, and they end up getting a divorce because she had a history of sexual trauma, and she covered that up with a lot of like binge eating and like eating like by herself. She would eat like on a couch. She would have to have like, how it is like on a Friday night, like it's raining. You're like, I'm gonna get Chinese, I'm gonna sit on the couch and glass of wine. But that was her every single day.
Okay.
So that created so much tension in her marriage that they got divorced because for him it boiled around sex, and for her it boiled around she wasn't interested in sex because of the sexual trauma, number one, but also the diabetes and this body image issues. So it's a lot interconnected with it.
So that's a whole another. That was like one of our points that we wanted to touch on, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Is how it affects you sexually, men and women, right? I feel like it probably affects both of us if you have some type of underlying health condition or if you're dealing with something health wise.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
I always say, like, mark it down, underline it. I say it once, I say it 1,000 times. If a man has issues with getting an erection, it is a blood flow problem. A Viagra or something similar, Cialis, is going to bring blood flow to the area, to the penis, but
right.
it's going to take blood away from somewhere else, which is when you hear people like having strokes after taking a Viagra, or having a cardiovascular, or having a heart attack, or something similar, because it's going to shunt all the blood here. But if your cardiovascular system, if your blood pressure is already up, and you know you got high blood pressure, you should not be taking anything for sexual enhancement as a man. Women, it's a little bit more complicated because it could be a blood flow issue, but it also could be a psychological issue. It could also be an attraction issue. So you got to break down the process of what's going on with that specific person, which is why I like working with people one on one.
So are you so wait. So you saying with us, it could just be like we're just not attracted. Like at
Yes.
some point, and that's why it's not working for us. That's why it's not working for us.
Yes. Yes. Because there's several layers and levels of attraction. It's not just like, oh, I'm physically attracted, like I see something, I'm ready to have sex or have an orgasm. It could also be like maybe a particular smell starts that attraction, and then the smell, then the body touch is the next part, and then it's like, oh, I got this flirty text message, and then you see the person, and it's like, I'm ready to go. Versus men are just wired differently. That's like as soon as the thought comes to them, there's nothing else that could happen except that end goal.
Right.
But when you look at the studies, it shows that men can achieve orgasm in 6 minutes approximately from the time that the penis goes in the vagina till they have an orgasm in 6 minutes. For women, it's 21.
Oh, we knew way
where it used to be none. I mean, I'm talking about like way back in the day. I'm just being honest. Like it took me a long time to even know when, like, to even have one, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I think I just had sex for sport for a very long time. And then it wasn't until like my 20s when I honestly remember having my first orgasm. So
now for you, since you said you was like you had nothing and then you had something, what was the change? What was the shift there for you? What, like, was it like you got more confident? Was it like you were with a partner that supported you?
I mean, I think that it was definitely somebody who took the time to make sure that I got to that point, because I feel like prior to that it was just humping and bumping. You know, it wasn't any feelings, like a whole lot of feelings going on, or it wasn't a whole lot of time being taken to cater to that need. So I mean, I'm not saying it didn't happen prior to then, but that's the most memorable time that I can remember. The first memorable time, should I say? And I was like 27, I think.
Okay.
But we probably don't even really like necessarily know our bodies, right? Like when you're so young and you're just starting to explore sex, you probably don't.
Exactly. And it's the other thing. I mean, not to get too much into like the science part of it, but I think it's important. And that's why I always say, like, men, if you're in a man-woman relationship, you really need to have your partner guide them, tell them where to go, tell them what feels good to you. Because if you're in a man-woman relationship, he is going to have an orgasm before you, statistically. So you want to make sure you guide them. So like you have to be heavy on the foreplay, so that way you also can have an orgasm. Like, you know, what's up? Meg Thee Stallion was like, you know, I ain't hiding a orgasm for. I forget what she said, but something like she's not gonna hide or fake an orgasm over nothing. And I think that's the way women should be. Like our desire.
Nobody's doing that. We ain't faking.
we actually authentic with the orgasm.
Exactly. We're gonna be looking like, now what?
Right. Because they say like about 80% of women do not have an orgasm with penetration. You need to have an orgasm with clitoral stimulation. So what does that look like? I mean, for some women, based on like, because if you can imagine the anatomy, inside the vagina is the vaginal canal. The top of the vagina is the cervix. That's the end of the uterus. So that's what moves around. That's where the baby comes in. That's what dilates when you have a baby. But if your uterus happens to be flexed backward, it might feel better for you to have like doggy style. It might feel better for you to be on your side. So, or you might, if your uterus is flexed the other way, you might feel better be missionary. So, all depends on what feels good to you, but also making sure that you're getting that clitoral stimulation. But also, if you're in a penetration, make sure you're getting penetration too.
So you said something earlier that made me think. I mean, I'm speaking as like a single woman right now in my 40s. It's definitely a deterrent to me to meet someone that at this point has like a lot of health problems.
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, you already know going in, like there's gonna be an issue with sex.
Mm-hmm.
There's gonna be an issue with like, just you probably just
Energy in
functioning,
general.
right? Energy in general, and I'm not trying to be nobody's nurse at this point. And that ain't what I'm signing up for.
Right.
If later on down the line, you get some health conditions, that's fine. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that I wouldn't be there, but initially, that's not something that I'm trying to sign up for. So I think health as a single person can definitely be a deterrent.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're dating.
Yeah. I think that even when you're married, right? Because I'm married, Amber. So even as a married person, it's people, you know how people like lose themselves and like
Yeah.
when they're with somebody for a long time, they may start out and they are healthy and they fit and all those things. And then over time, they start gaining weight and they just start having health issues as a result. It's important going into it if you're single, and it's important to maintain it, when you're in a relationship. So it's just levels to it.
Yeah, and
What
I think it's timing too. Like it's not the right time or the best time to say like while you're eating dinner, like, hey, have you thought about going to the gym lately? Like right time. Or like even like after, like, I don't know, like if you're just laying in bed, get ready to go to sleep, it's not a good time to be like, hey, you want to talk about our sex life? Like you need to create like a emotional foreplay for that. Like just like build up, build up, build up, and then you're like, hey, I was thinking about, it has to be very casual because you end up getting more, you get bees get more with honey than vinegar. So you just want to make sure you're like sweet with it and be soft with it if you're going to have like a hard conversation like that. I would say in general, like when I'm healthier, I have a better sex drive. I have orgasms. I have multiple orgasms. I feel like it's important to health. You can't discount, like no one. I would say traditionally, me personally, and I would hope this is not the case with everybody else, but I think it is. Most people don't talk about sex with their doctors, and I think that's unfortunate because your doctor's not traditionally saying like, "Have you had an orgasm? Or are you having problems having an orgasm? Does it hurt when you have sex?" They're not having those conversations. Or you getting recurrent UTIs after you have sex. Like you need to talk about it because how can we just exclude that as a part of life when that is the how life is created?
Yeah. So
That's
why don't doctors ask that, or why is it hard?
I think it's a thing with their own personal beliefs or values. They just don't know how to talk about it, and they get like nutrition. They get very little education on sexual health, sexual desire, and also nutrition. So I think those topics are like off the table. Like, oh, you got blood pressure? I'll talk to you all day about high blood pressure or diabetes. But when it comes to like something like sex or orgasms or relationships or nutrition, it's off the table.
Well, I think that's because they like everything's so sectored, So it's like if I am I don't know, just what I don't know the different doctors, but if I'm a
Gynecologist.
gynecologist, I mean, they obviously may
Yeah.
ask you but they ask you real basic questions about like
Mhm.
sex, or, when's the last time you had sex, or when's the last time you had, a menstrual cycle, things like that. But because they're not a sex therapist, then they
Mhm.
feel like that's not in my realm to be able to have that conversation. And it's like, it all is though. But I
Yeah.
think it's the same way we feel about, education and how certain things aren't talked about in school, right? But it should be. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with like the
The
medical
medical
field. They
thing.
should be able to cross educate and cross, discuss things that are important, because we all know that certain things affect certain
Right,
things,
Allison, really.
like Amber already said earlier, where, you know, sex, orgasms, all those things, it can affect the relationship. And then I think in turn, when we have those conversations with our spouses or, significant others, that I hate that it has to be like a negative conversation, or it has to be maybe an argument, or it has to be resentment, instead of being able to have like this healthy conversation to kind of get to the root of whatever that problem is. Because just like you said, if somebody is struggling with what impotence or something like that,
I'm sure that's embarrassing. I mean, I'm sure that's like embarrassing for a man. I'm not a man, but I would think it would be,
or maybe even like disappointing for that they can't perform the way that they want to. But it doesn't have to be like an argument. I think just getting into those healthy conversations, like, well, are you feeling okay? Like, should we schedule an appointment with the doctor? Like, maybe we can try different herbs and vitamins or whatever that conversation is to try to get to a solution where everybody can be happy. I think that I don't know. I mean, I'm not in people's lives, so I don't know if that's common.
I remember I got a story.
Oh, you got a story?
I remember one time I was dating this guy, and we were in a relationship, but it was like an early on relationship, right? It wasn't a long, but it wasn't something like really long term. Mm-hmm. But I feel like he knew he had that issue, but he kind of like hid it from me. Mm-hmm. And so he felt like I was like hooked in. Like once you're past that point where it's like, well, dang, I'm in now. Yeah. Yeah. And I felt like that was so deceptive. Like, who does that? Right? Like, I'm serious.
So was it like he was masking it, like maybe like Viagra or something?
That's what I'm saying. I feel like he probably was taking something, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And then once that looked like maybe once it was like almost a year in, it was like, all right, well, and of course I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, what's what's going on? Like, you secrets?
I know. Like,
and you know what the thing is too is like, I think men think that only way they can satisfy a woman is through with their penis, and there's so many other things you can do. Like, I remember I was looking at a meme the other day, and it's like, imagine me being mad or crying over a dude that after he sucked my nipples stink because his breath stink. And I was like, yep, that's nothing to cry. If your breath stink enough to leave it on your nipples, that's probably not a good situation, because maybe he got like a bad tooth, maybe he got like a habit tooth. But it's true. I think there's other ways to like show, and like I think those conversations has to be constant, because even over time, like we've been together 12 years, we've been married 9 years. The things I liked at the beginning, like in a relationship or as far as like, conceptually or intimately, those have changed throughout the years. I've gotten older. I'm in my 40s now. Like those have changed. Like I might want this over that. We have a conversation about what feels good to me or what feels good. I'm in a same-sex marriage. But what feels good to her, what feels good to me. So we want to talk about this because things change. People change. Like I might be like, I'm willing to try this. I was never willing to try this before, but let me give it a go. Or, so I think you can't, don't judge people's, what they're called kinks. Don't judge people's kinks. Some people like biting. Some people like sucking. Some people like, I don't know, like they like to be voyeurs, like to be outside. Like whatever it is that you like to do, like make it happen. As long as you're in the confines of a healthy relationship and you don't feel pressured, you're not being abused, anything goes. Even if you're not in a healthy relationship, as long as you have an agreement with the other person you're sleeping with.
Right.
I think that may be sometimes like where, how you said things change over time. So maybe like you get into a relationship and things are kind of just whatever they are between you. And then as time goes on, now, what wasn't there before becomes this new thing that your partner may want to explore. So now it's like you kind of flip the script a little bit. So now that person may have to adjust to that, something that they kind of didn't sign up for. And I could see that possibly being like a point of contention in a relationship where it's like, okay, well, we've been together this long and we wasn't doing these things, but now this thing that you decided that you want to do is so important, and I don't want to.
Right.
But now what?
Yeah. How do you face those conversations?
People got to be on this. You both got to be on the same page. You both have to be in an agreement that it's a no. I know for me, like if it's something that's out my wheelhouse, and I'm not that adventurous, so I mean, with me and my partner, that's fine. But a lot of the things that I hear people do, like with outside parties and stuff like that, I'm just not that adventurous. Kind of in that arena. Yeah. But I think both people have to be. It's no judgment, but I just think both people have to be on board with that, like whatever it is you want to try. you know, because you're uncomfortable with doing it, it's not going to be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I've taken care of people, like one partner specifically in a polyamorous relationship where she comes in constantly to get like STD checked because she's not sure. And I'm like, well, if you all three have an agreement, there should be no STD unless somebody else is, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's like it's one of those things like what and she's like, are you sure these results are correct? Are you sure? Are you sure? So it's like it gives me the
So then
mindset
you feel
like of course
like,
it's a test. I don't mind doing the test, but at the same time, like, hey, do you need to have a further conversation about like your trust and what you have going on inside, or maybe you need to have a conversation with them, you know?
Mhm.
yeah,
Like something's not being communicated
correctly.
properly to make you feel like you're
Yep.
trusting this situation that's going on. Yeah.
So that leads me to another question I have for you. So do you feel like um those outside factors, like say trust, and not even just in like a romantic relationship, like we can just say any relationship, if you're having issues at work or if you're having issues, family issues, you think these factors play a heavy part in your health?
Oh my gosh, so much, so much. There's a study that I actually have it linked on my Instagram page under my on my bio, where you can actually go take the quiz. It's called the ACEs quiz. It stands for Adverse Childhood Events. And basically, if you have more than a 4 on that study, on that quiz, you're at high risk for every health condition known to man. Specifically, like say you have a greater than a 4, you have almost a 40% increase of having asthma. If you have more than a 6, you have an increased chance of early death. You have increased risk of diabetes, suicide, depression. All your risk factors go up. And the questions are very simple. I think it's about 7 or 8 questions, but it's like, did you ever grow up where you were like a household member went to prison? Did you ever grow up in a household where you had an unreliable caregiver, maybe for mental illness? Did you grow up with a family member that had mental illness? You yourself have mental illness. So it has all these questions. And when I did mine, I just redid mine the other day just to make sure if anything changed. Nope, it's still a 6. Mine is still a 6. So
I
it's one of
feel
those
like
things.
I know. I'm interested now. I love doing those kind of
Yeah.
things.
yeah,
Because when you look at the like your adverse childhood events and you connect like what happened to you in your childhood as far as like your health outcomes, you almost feel like you're like fighting against like a hamster wheel. Like I'm trying to run away from these things. And me personally, I feel like I was for a large majority of my life running away from my health problems because my family has high risk of cancer, breast cancer specifically, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high cholesterol. I mean, I had high cholesterol when I was 21. So, 4 years later, cold turkey, I stopped eating meat. And I was like, I'm done eating meat. And I just like one day I just made a decision. I'm like, I'm done. And it's been almost 16 years, no meat. I do eat fish, but I eat primarily a plant-based diet. So I try to make sure like I keep my health in check. I use exercise and running as my like antidepressant medicine because I have a history of depression. So it's like these things help to keep me on track. But it's like as a Black woman, your risk factors are so sky high. You don't even think it's a thing. You just like always say like Black women think like that trauma you grew up with as a kid is a joke. It's a family joke. Like remember when your mama beat your ass with that
exactly. It's like, right?
and it's like
Yeah.
you don't think about it as being a thing, but it's like, oh yeah, maybe that was a little bit low key abuse, but you didn't think about it.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because that was a topic I was telling Wanda that we definitely want to discuss. But since we're here,
Yeah.
and you're here, I wanted to ask your opinion because I was telling Wanda, like, I feel like people use really serious terms very loosely. I know, like I've done it, I'm guilty, but like how somebody might, you know, have a mood swing, right? Well, you have a mood swing, and then you have a true disorder that's bipolar, and then you'll have people like who might have a mood swing, like, oh, they so bipolar,
Yeah.
or if somebody's exhibiting certain behavior, it's like, oh, he's such a narcissist, or
like overused terms at this point, like, but they're real mental health issues, and
yeah.
it's like because it's so overused.
It's like, are we taking it serious?
Right,
Like, am I like, is this something that really should be taken serious instead of saying being used so loosely? You know,
Right.
like if somebody's exhibiting narcissistic behavior based on a definition that you read, why am I saying it loosely? Maybe this person really needs to go see a specialist, or maybe needs some real, needs to
Some
address that. It's
right,
like
some
I
real help.
Yeah. Yeah. And
really feel like that people do use like terms very loosely, and that it should be taken more serious.
I think
Possibly.
I think that I mean, the only person that can diagnose specifically, of course, will be a nurse practitioner, a doctor, a physician assistant. That specialty group can diagnose. But when you see that type of behavior happening, what I generally say is if you see that behavior happening, like, oh, for example, my own experience, my middle daughter, man, she always gives me a hard time. She's like, you got the one, she's the one, she's the one. Started back with when I started back with counseling, I was like, I really just want to. She's like, why are you here? I was like, I really just want to be a better mom. So I started with her, and within like a month after even meeting with her, her behavior changed, even without me changing my own parenting style, because I was checking myself. So I think if you see that behavior in somebody else, instead of saying you need help, you really have three fingers pointing back at yourself and say, maybe I need help. Maybe it's something. Maybe my perspective needs to change. Maybe my perspective, what I'm accepting or what I'm seeing, needs to change. Versus like I automatically want to label somebody. They're acting like a narcissist. Versus like, why am I in proximity of a narcissist? I don't like the way I feel when I'm around them. And it's almost a chance, an opportunity, in a meditative moment to check yourself. I do
That's
think
true.
sometimes people.
Have
Yeah,
control over yourself, really,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
right. Right. And I do think sometimes people do use terms loosely, but I think when, for example, for depression is really when you feel bad most days of the month. You can't pick your head off the pillow. You have loss of interest of your activities. There's a whole questionnaire for that also. And then there's another one for anxiety disorder. Do you have like, you feel like you have constant worry, you can't get it out of your mind, you're debilitated by it, all these things. If you have that, you really should go talk to somebody so that way they can do the quiz. But you can look up the quiz online. It's called the GAD 7 or GAD 4. You can also look
Mm-hmm.
up the other one. It's called PQH 9. So those are just real quick tools that anybody can look up and say, like, you don't even have to like work it down. You can just read it online and say, oh, yep, that sounds like me. Oh, yeah, that sounds like me. And if that is you, please know that that's going to affect your outcomes, because as I say, when I get into a funk, the whole house shuts down. Like
That's true.
like your health is going to affect your relationships. It's like I'm thinking I gotta get out of this funk. I gotta get out of this funk. But now the way I parent and love myself now is like I'm gonna go through it. Let me just get through this versus try to get over it. And when I give myself grace, give yourself some patience, be able to get through it. And just know that it's a normal, natural thing that happens in all people. But sometimes the light can shine a little brighter on you when you are working in corporate America, or you have other people to care for, or you're a caregiver. Like those things make a huge, huge difference, I think.
I feel like too, it's like, especially when you're in a relationship, a lot of times like you're expected to just like push through, right? And sometimes you might just be in a place where you just can't.
Hmm.
You just like, if you know what I mean, if you're physically sick, you just might can't, or even if you're mentally like depressed or something like that. I remember like during COVID, I experienced like a lot of death of people that were really close to me. And then I got like COVID, pneumonia, it was like bad, and it was like back to back. And I never before that like felt like I ever experienced depression. Like I've always been like a happy person. But after I got sick, I really did like fall into a really dark place. Just because I was scared. Like, everybody was dying, and I just didn't know what it just put me in a place where I started being real reflective. Like, what if I'm gone? Like my kids are not at the point where they're not grown, they're not where I need them to be. Like I just was like all in my thoughts.
Yep.
And I will say that having a supportive or non-supportive partner going through those type of things is like a deal breaker at that point, because if you can't be there for me, I'm speaking personally, when I'm at my lowest, I don't want you there when I'm
Hmm.
up here. Like I
Yep.
don't, and I can't even see you in that way. Like I can't even see you being there for me in the good times if you can't be there for me in the bad times.
Right.
It definitely makes you think too, like when you're a younger person, like, well, how is it gonna be when I get old? Like
Mhm.
if you can't care for me now, you know what's gonna happen when we get to a old age, right? And I actually really might need you to like
Or
care
any
for
just
me.
any age, because
Yeah,
things happen in life. Like it's people that are not old,
that's
and
true.
then they may have some kind of health issue that maybe they're disabled or whatever the case may be, and they need
Mm-hmm.
that support. It's like you're like, if I can't trust you to be there for me and support me um here, then what am I looking forward to later?
Yeah.
So what do you do with that though?
Um,
I mean, do
for
you
me, get out of it.
get out of
But
it?
you know,
That's what I'm
um,
saying, because I feel
that's
like
not, yeah. And I'm not someone. I know we've had a few episodes at this point, and some of the feedback is like we always say get out of it, right?
yeah.
It's not always get out of it, but there are, to me, there's certain things that everybody has their threshold, right? And for me, there's certain things that's deal breakers, and that for me is the deal breaker, because I would never not support my partner through
Mhm.
like sickness. I think, and that's mental or physical. I would
Right.
not. So I would, yeah. So
So, to bounce off of that, Amber, when you were going through your bouts of depression, were you in a relationship? Were you single? Like, was that something that you were, like, what was your relationship status? Because I'm just curious if your partner had to be supportive of you, and how, if they were able to support you during that time.
Yeah, this has always been like a touchy topic, but I always, I'm getting to a point where I can feel comfortable talking about it. But the first bout of depression that I had was right around 25, 26, and I was married at the time. We had just adopted my oldest daughter, and I was married. I was in a same-sex marriage. Um, I went through, well, right around the same time. I had just stopped eating meat. So around this time, I mean, this is like 2010, around somewhere around there. There was not a lot of like plant-based options. So I'm just like carb loading, rice and pasta and doing all this stuff. And then I had gained like so much weight. And I was always like a thin person, but I was like gained so much weight. I had no energy to do anything. I remember right around this time, one of my friends was like, "Hey, you want to go out dance?" And I was like, "No." And that was never always like a dance floor. I'm ready to go dance. I'm ready to have a good time, whatever. So right around the same time, like I came out, my mom was like, "Hell no." That's another story for another podcast. But my mom was like, "No." So she like we lost touch. We didn't talk for almost 6 years. So this whole thing is going on. It but fast forward, I locked myself in a closet with a gun in my hand because I was like, this has to be over. Like I have no family, I have no support. My wife at the time is not supportive of what I'm going through. Like I just felt very alone. End up going
Mm-hmm.
to end up going to an inpatient treatment program, and my roommate's name was Amber also, and she was going through withdrawal. So the nurse will come in and be like, "Amber's going to be okay. Amber's going to be okay." And I'm like, I feel like God is talking to me. So that whole scenario with like the loneliness, the isolation, the non-supportive, like my whole thing going through depression, the whole nine. Scientifically, I can look back and say like my body was inflamed. I wasn't making enough serotonin because my gut was all out of balance. I didn't have
mhm.
I don't no I had no community. I had no friends. I was like working and taking care of this baby. The pressure of an adoption is its own thing too, but just like
Mm-hmm.
having that whole scenario happen like really propelled me forward to get on the right track. So that after that, I'm like, I'm going for a run. My run is my medicine. If I don't want to take a pill, I need to go hit the miles. And then I switched everything around as far as my eating too. So within like 6 months of that, man, I was like back to normal. I'm like, I should have been feeling like this, all along. But it's having a supportive partner is such a big change because even like you get a little bit depressed or have like depressive days or depressive episodes, even like in my current marriage, but the support is so different. It's like, what can I do for you? Are you okay? Do you need space? And it's like now I know what. So I get a playbook. Like if I'm feeling down, this is what I say. If I'm feeling down, ask me the last time I ran. So that's my prescription. So I'm like, I might even realize it because I might be so busy with work or the kids or my son, whatever's going on with me. But I'm like, if I'm acting this way, please ask me to do this. And once I do that thing,
Mhm.
then I can start that's the starter for me. But I think all people and all women need to know what that thing is for them. Like, what is the thing that's going to get, if you are feeling a certain kind of way, or you know you have tendencies to get into a certain area, what is your starter to get you back on track?
I think that's a good question to answer, actually.
Yeah.
So, um, like for me, I feel like what gets me back on track is just to like I don't know, and this probably is not going to sound good based on what you shared, but it's to like just be by myself.
Yeah.
Like it's literally to just be by myself,
Yeah.
and it's not like I'm down or I'm sad or but I just need to just be with myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then it's like once I have time to be with myself, I can, get through whatever I'm dealing with. And then I'm fine. Like I'm not really, I don't need the hugs or the continuing to talk to me or anything like that. I just need to kind of sometimes work through whatever I'm dealing with
Mhm.
and get through it on my own. And then, but I definitely do appreciate the support that I
Mhm.
get at the same time with it. But it's like for me, I noticed that when I'm like having a tough time, whether it's just mentally, emotionally, or just one of those days, just being by myself,
Yep. Yep.
um,
Yeah, and I often say
Well,
like it
that's
because
great. I mean, like, I guess it's different for.
oh, go ahead, Amber.
no, I was gonna say, I think if you know that about yourself, like being alone helps you. I always say like that's a little bit of a recharge. So I think that you should probably consider you're an empath, meaning that you pick up on people's energies when you're around them. So sometimes being by yourself, it allows you to wash that energy off of you. So, in a certain kind of way, like I feel like maybe I could probably go either way. Like I could pick up good energy from people, but sometimes I need to be alone to like wash it off. Like I feel like sometimes so heavy from like when people tell me their problems. I mean, these are like deep, dark, a heaviness. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
sometimes I do by myself or get in nature. Like today, I was out in my yard for like 2 or 3 hours, messing in my garden, doing a bunch of different stuff, and I felt so, felt just in the sunshine, feeling really good. So sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
just like knowing what people like know, like especially women, Black women. I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for this in my life. But what actually recharges you? Nobody has an answer. You know what pisses you off, but you don't know what recharges you. So yeah, I think that's a major problem. Like you get pissed off before you get out of bed in the morning, but then when it's time to recharge, you don't know what that looks like. Like specifically, what does that look like? For me, it looks like a hot shower at the end of the day, not being bothered. I shut my bedroom, I shut my bathroom door. I do a face routine, make sure I get by, and I'm just in there quiet. I'm just washing all the day down the drain. Or again, being in the garden,
Mm-hmm.
the miles, getting in the sunshine. My kids, like these things help to like really recharge me and get you back on track. But I think most people need to ask themselves that question, like, what makes you feel good? Because it's going to affect your
Yeah.
relationship.
What?
So how about you? Like,
I
how do
love
you recharge?
self care. You know, I'm all about that. I need to go. Yeah, I need a
Mhm.
massage. Let
Yeah.
me go to the spa. Let me go. Let me
Hmm.
go. Like, let me go somewhere. A trip. Trips
Yeah.
recharge me. Yeah. Like if I don't go, I told you that if I don't go somewhere like every 3 months, my attitude is different. I'm just like a different person, but because I feel like those type of things are like me intentionally focusing on myself because I am like a huge giver. Like I'm always trying to help
Mhm.
people and but when I do those things, it's like yeah, it's not about nobody else. Like this
Hmm.
is my
It's about
time. Yeah,
you.
it's all
Yeah.
about me at this time. I'm not pouring out anything. I'm not cooking, doing something for somebody else. So yeah, that's
And that's important to health too. What you mentioned in that, like people that just give way more of themselves than they actually have to give. Like there's a lot. I know people like I'm kind of not like that. Like so for a long time. I mean, I do give like I definitely care about people and I give, but I don't deplete myself giving. I've never been that. Like you have people that will like they'll just keep just just oh, can you come pick me up? Oh, can you do this? Oh, can you come to this? Can you do that? Like I have no problem not doing
Yeah,
things because
yeah,
I give everything that I have to give then for me, for myself.
yeah,
yeah,
that's huge. That's
yeah. And
huge.
that's another
And
thing. I'm
for
so
that, I also
grateful.
just to yeah, bring it
Sorry.
back to what we were talking about. If you give so much, no, I'm sorry.
It's just a delay.
Yeah,
Sorry.
if you give so much, also like outside of your household, like outside of your relationship, whatever, you're neglecting your core. You know, I see a lot of people that do that. Like they're so engaged with the outside world that they give so much, or they're so, I got to do this, or I'm in this club, or I'm in this, you know, this, and they're so scattered. And then their spouse or their children or their job, their business is suffering because they're not actually putting their energy to where it's supposed to go, right? Like you gotta, charity starts at home. You gotta take care of you.
Right, 100%. I worked palliative and end of life care during the pandemic. So, you know, a busy day would be like 5 to 6 patients a day normally. During the pandemic, I remember having like 3 pages of patients I had to go through and see, either change their code status, have a family meeting, get them off the BiPAP, have a conversation about that we didn't have enough vents in the hospital. I mean, this was an ongoing thing, day after day after day after day.
Yeah.
At the time, my wife was in basic training, so she was away. I think that if she was here, there would have been major problems in our relationship, because I was so drained emotionally from work that I know for a fact I was bringing it back home. So, you know, towards the end, before I end up leaving that position, it's like I worked from home for like a month, like 4 to 6 weeks, and I was like, listen, I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm not. I mean, I feel like I emotionally have grown to be a strong person, but I'm not built to be doing death pronouncements every 15 minutes. Like, what human can do that day after day after day? It doesn't, like, you know, mess with your psychology. So, you know, just talking to a girl yesterday, she says, I want to be a nurse. I said, what kind of nurse? I want to be a pediatric nurse. And I said, I hear about what you want to give, but what do you want to get? So that's a question you need to ask yourself. At any situation, scenario, relationship you're giving, but what are you getting? And it doesn't have to. This doesn't have to be a selfish thing, but you want to make sure you're getting something out of any situation you get, because energy is not lost; it's transferred. So if you're giving out so much, your vase is now depleted. So I use the vase analogy a lot. Like, if I'm pouring into my vase of like myself, like Wanda, you said, your self-care, you're putting in like your trips, you're putting in like all this stuff, your vase is going to constantly stay full. Versus you have the little bit you have left over. Now you're pouring a little bit into your kids, you're pouring a little bit into your marriage, you're pouring a little bit into your career. Now you have nothing. Who refills your vase? So you constantly have to have that inflow or that income of like good positive stuff coming in.
So professionally, when you encounter people that come in, do you feel like the men handle it differently than the women? Like, I guess just like the whole being supportive thing, or even like finding out about a health condition, or just you feel like men and women handle it completely differently?
I do. I feel like men can be a little bit like almost like lackadaisical about it. Like, hey, yeah, I'm only here because they told me I got to come here for my job, and I need to get back to work. Women, it's usually tied to something like more emotional, like, I really want to get this checked out because my mom just was diagnosed with breast cancer, or I really want to get this taken care of because I have my kids. I'm a single mom, and I really want to make sure I'm able to go to work and able to be off at a certain time. So I feel like with men, it's like very like almost like lackadaisical, like, oh, I'm just here because my wife told me to come in. I'm only here because, you know, my girlfriend or, you know, whatever told me I need to get checked out, versus like you yourself are taking the initiative to say like, okay, I need to be taken care of it. So I do see that dynamic when there's a man coming in and the woman is with him. It's a very like power struggle between the two. So it's very much of, I'm only here because she brought me in. Like, well, you don't take your medication, and it's a whole thing.
Right.
Where a lot of times where women come in for healthcare condition, and they usually will come alone. So they usually don't come in with their partners if they're in a same-sex relationship. So it's almost like they come in by themselves. My husband said this, da da da. So it's very rare that I'll see a husband support his wife in that way if she has a health condition, unless it's already been diagnosed. So I think there's could be a little bit better emotional regulation there for the men on like staying emotionally in tune with their partners. But I think women have to do a better job making themselves available for that, and not, you know, not with you, Candace, but just making sure you're like not closing off like so much. Like, open up a little bit, like open the door just a tiny bit to say like, hey, I'm feeling this way. I just need like 4 or 5 hours of quiet time. Can you please watch the kids or look after them so I can like watch a movie or two or three? Or I'm going to run
Mhm.
out to the store. I'm going to, just run a Target run, quote unquote. So you do what you got to do so that way you can get yourselves on track, but also make sure you keep the door emotionally open to at least one, two, or three people that you can call. Say, I'm having not a great day. Do you have any words of affirmation?
Yeah, that's important too.
Yeah, I think that I'm pretty good at expressing when I'm going through something or when I just need a minute. Um, my friends, not so much because I'm just going to talk to them regardless. But my husband, obviously, he's here, so I need to make sure that I try to make sure that when I'm having my moments, that he's not feeling like it's something he did or. So it's like, look, I kind of tend to stay quiet though. Like I won't literally just be like, I just need a couple hours. I'm about to do, but because of my job and what I do, it's easy for me to hop in the truck and just take a drive. And I'm always in the car anyway, so that's kind of like my peaceful place. So I mean,
Mhm.
I think I have my methods, but I will receive what you said about probably being better at explaining like I am having a not so great day, or it's
Yeah,
I just need some time to just be.
just a moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Right.
that's the thing. Do you remember before, Amber, when we were talking about another time about like the whole thing I was going through with my fibroids,
Mhm.
and I was telling you that a lot of men give me feedback on like they just didn't know, like
Mhm.
that a lot of those symptoms, what that was, they just were thinking that like maybe their
Mhm.
wife just she didn't want to have sex, or maybe she just was like annoyed, or just they didn't know, they weren't correlating that this is actually a health condition that produces these symptoms, right? And they're men, their health conditions and their symptoms are different than ours.
Right.
So if we're not, I guess if we're not telling them, right, or if a doctor's not telling them this is what this is, and the same with them, like how you just earlier explained to us that if there's no blood flow, it doesn't matter what you could be doing somersaults, nothing's gonna happen,
Mm-mm.
right?
Not a darn thing.
Know that they're cheating or something else is going on with them. So to your point, it probably is really important to keep that communication part open and just say, hey, I'm not feeling well, or this is
Mhm.
going on, it's not you.
Right.
I just need a minute, or this is what's going on in my body, I'm not sure what it is. Um,
And in
yeah, so
today's
that it
world,
doesn't, like, I guess.
there's so many ways to communicate. There's like I think sometimes we think of communicating. The first thing comes to mind is I'm sitting down having a conversation with you and we're talking. It doesn't have to be that way. Sometimes it could be like we've been in periods in our marriage where I'm like, look, here's a book. I'm gonna write down my thoughts in it and I'm gonna leave it on the table and then you write back to me because I can't even talk to you. So you gotta
That's
consider
good,
that.
I like that.
You got to consider those responsibilities a way to communicate, or maybe you need to communicate where you're like not looking at each other. Maybe you need to, call me when you get in the car, and I'll talk to you on the phone, or call me on FaceTime, and we'll have a conversation. So we're connected visually, but we're apart from each other. Or maybe it'll be a situation where we're actually standing in front of each other and holding hands, or we're going to hug for an extended period of time. Like there's so many different ways to
Mhm.
communicate what's happening, but it always doesn't have to go back to like you being a problem or they being a problem. Is a problem that you're in a relationship that you're trying to work on together. Like it's you, them, and you're in the issue. And something I heard the other day makes perfect sense is solve the problem of the day. Like every day is going to have different problems, but whatever the problem is today, solve it and then move on. There's going to be another problem tomorrow. Something else is going to come up. Anything could happen. But you just want to make sure
Yeah.
that you're like really like focused in and you have a good supportive partner. If you don't, then leave them. Um, but but you want to make sure like, that you have somebody that's supporting you because again, like I said earlier, like you're in a part of you're giving, but what are you getting? What am I getting out of this relationship? Am I getting like where I've gotten healthier throughout? If you've been in a relationship and you have not gotten healthier in your relationship, and I'm talking in all aspects, financially healthier, mentally healthier, physically healthier, emotionally healthier. If you have not gotten healthier in your relationship, you probably need to ask yourself a question: is this the right relationship for you?
That is a good. We need to pose that when we put this up there. That is a good question for everybody that's watching the podcast to comment on and let us know. Have you gotten healthier in your relationship? That's a good way to assess what's going on.
I think it's a great way to assess what's going on in a relationship, and also assessing your growth as a person and also your spouse. Because I know, like, when you just said a couple of things, I love when things kind of come full circle and it's like, you know what, we are growing. Because I remember a time, like, because I wanted to tell you, my husband can talk, right? Like, he can talk, and it's honestly sometimes hard to get a word in edgewise, and I'm not really a big debater and stuff like that. So I had realized many years ago that sometimes trying to have a conversation and me trying to say what I am trying to say doesn't work, because he's going to always cut you off, or he's always going to talk. So I was like, okay, I still, and I don't even think it's like he doesn't want to hear what I have to say. I think it's just he literally can't help himself. So I realized many years ago, I was like, well, when I have things that I want to talk about, I'll text him. I'll text and back like years ago, I used to send, like, we'll send emails, because I was like, if I text him or if I send an email, he can't cut me off. Now he could just decide not to read it, but he can't cut me off. So it's like I can say what I need to say. He can read it. He can take some time to either respond. We could talk about it another time, whatever. But I found that that's what worked for us, was for me to be able to express myself without interruption and without any type of I guess,
like debate or
misinterpretation of what I'm trying to say. I was like, all right, I'll just text them. And then it was another thing you said, like, he knows me really well. So when I'm not having a good day, it shows. Like, it's hard for me to not show it on my face. So those are those days where sometimes I'm just like, I just need a hug. And it's not really a conversation. It's just a hug. And the hug is almost like a conversation without words.
Yeah. And you know, the other thing I wanted to bring up earlier, but I'll try to, if you guys can remember, just link it at the bottom. But your attachment styles. So there's a quiz for that too. And there's 4 different types of attachment styles. I listened to a podcast on this actually, and then I was like, let me take my own. And I realized that I was an anxious attachment style. And that can affect your relationships too, because it's like, you know, it could be nothing going on. You know, let's say my wife went out with her friends, and I might be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Because from my childhood, I was left alone a lot by my mom, and I didn't know when she was coming home. So it creates a little bit of like, you know, sort of a little bit of like anxiety within me. So sometimes that can make it a little bit difficult as far as like early on in my relationship. Like, you got a problem? Let's fix it right now. Let's talk about it. Let's fix it right now. Okay, where we are. You know, you almost like, you know, like not to that extent, but like, you know, Tina and Ike Turner when they got in a fight in a limo. Like, you've been arguing in the car the whole way to the family reunion, family barbecue. You get it, you're like, we need to come to this side. We gonna sit in this car until we figure this out. You know, now you grow to a point where you're like, you know what? We just gonna go in here and have a good time. Let's talk about it later. You know, so it's like
it's important to find out then, right? When you're in a relationship with your person's attachment.
I think in a relationship and just relationships in general too, because I know, like, even friendships, right? Like, I'm a loner by nature. Like, I just like being by myself, but I also like I'm a selective loner, but I never was like a clingy friend. Like, I'm a friend and I love hanging out with my girlfriends, all that stuff, but I'm not a clingy friend. I'm also not a clingy wife. Like, I don't need to always be around my husband, you know, and sometimes that might come off. If you don't understand somebody's attachment style, like you said, then that could come off like, well, you don't even want to be around me, or, you know,
care, or
so that's right. I'm linking all
We're gonna link all of these
because these are really important. Like, I feel like you just got all the gems. Like, you literally and you say it so eloquently and just so matter of factly, and it really makes me happy. I'm glad that you came on the show today, because a lot of these things are questions, in my opinion, that people have, and they just don't even know how to really figure it out. You know, so then it's like you kind of just go in life and you just have relationships, and then, you know, especially people who don't have successful relationships, or they just keep,
Going
it keeps
on.
not working out.
Yeah.
There's a reason why it keeps not working out,
Right.
and it's because you probably haven't taken to those different things. You don't know your attachment style. You don't know how to communicate really, or what kind of communication
Mhm.
style works for you.
Or how to work
Um,
through, like how to find what does work. Like how you say you figured out like this is what works for me, right?
Mhm.
This is what works for our relationship. This is what
Mhm.
works, and that probably can apply to like any relationship, right, Amber? Like if you can't necessarily communicate with your parents or your
Mhm.
kids, like you gotta find a way, right? Some type of bridge to get this done.
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Yep. And you said about communication and all that stuff. It's all too about like being truthful and honest with yourself and like really checking yourself. And I can't say that enough. Like you have to be at a position as a grown up woman living in the United States. Anybody can hear my voice. You have to be in a position where you have to be able to be honest with yourself and say, I got my own bullshit, and face it and say like, all right, this is my bullshit. All right, I need to start therapy. I need to start counseling. I need to eat better. I know I shouldn't be having this whatever to put in my mouth, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Like you got to really check yourself on your own bullshit and not be upset when somebody else checks you, but also create a situation where somebody else can check you. Like, hey girl, if you see me doing this, tell me to stop because I don't need it. Or you see me get into another relationship, tell me, girl, don't do it. Have somebody else that's willing to
Yeah.
check you, and like your accountability partner, and that creates a community and a village of people that you can count on.
And that's
Oh my
important.
gosh, we did that.
Yes, we
We
do.
did that because Awanda, like I'm telling you, you keep hitting all these nails on the head because she and I did. Remember when you was like, I think it was like when you was like, I'm gonna tell you I love you. Was it
Yeah.
that? It was something like that where she would be like, Ken, I love you, and she'll tell me that, and it's just like I don't even remember exactly why we had that discussion, but it was a reason.
Yeah, something happened, and I was like, I'm gonna tell you I love you all the time.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you give me a hug when I see you.
Yeah, I think it was that because I was like, I'm not really an affectionate person and all of that. And Wanda's like, well, you want to give me a hug, or just being that, and that's supported as a friend.
Right.
Because she could definitely just be like, well, I'm just not gonna even touch the girl. Like I ain't, I don't wanna. But instead, it was like, no, you can push through there. It's okay to.
And the thing is too, like Candace, like looking at you now, like talking about that scenario about the hug and the conversation you had, your face just lights up now, and you're just thinking about it, just talking about it. And the good news is your brain doesn't know the difference between an actual event and a perceived one. So if you're actually going through being chased by a tiger, or you're actually thinking about it, the same hormones get released. But when you're thinking about a hug, oxytocin is released. You feel like more relaxed. And oxytocin is what released after you breastfeed, but also after you have an orgasm. So like that sense of like calm and relaxation and like connection, like you want that oxytocin to be released throughout the day, which is why text messages work for a friend. Like let me tell my girl I miss her, or let me say hey I miss you, or let me send a flirty text message to my spouse, or let me just send a message to my kids or leave a note in their lunch bag, say like I'm proud of you, do a good job today. Like those little like bits of oxytocin throughout the day help your overall health, but also help your relationships. And people who don't have relationships actually die sooner because they don't have community.
Mm-hmm.
That is a big thing. So all of y'all tell y'all girlfriends y'all love them.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's not just
Give
for
them a
romantic
hug.
relationships.
Yeah.
Because I do love y'all.
Yeah.
I love y'all.
Yes. I love y'all too.
Look, we might have to have you on. We might have to have you on once a quarter because we could literally sit here and talk to you for at least a couple more hours. I know I can
I know.
because I feel like I just got a free session. So for everybody that's tuning into this episode, y'all better appreciate what y'all getting because this was some quality information here. Like you even gave us tools so that we can figure out those things, that maybe we didn't know before, such as the attachment style quiz.
What was the other one for your childhood?
And also, please tell us your Instagram page.
And how people can find you always.
Yes. So if you, I hang out most on Instagram, so you can find me under Affinity AFFINITY Affinity_Wellness. I post most of my content there. There is a link to go right under my bio, so you can actually, book an appointment, book a consultation. I do run periodic programs. You can always just email me also, or go to my website, which is Affinity Wellness Consultants with a S.com.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Amber, thank you so much
For
for
coming.
joining us on the podcast. But you will be back, right?
Yes.
Yes, of course, of course. Let me know.
We gotta have you back.
You're our first guest ever.
Yes.
Thank you. I feel very honored. I feel very honored. Let me know when you guys release it so I can share it.
Oh, we sure will. And thank you so much for your support as well, because I noticed before even knowing you or meeting you that you were like one of our biggest supporters, like on our page, just really, giving us just giving us that feedback and just the support and excitement. So thank you so much for joining us on episode 5 of the Actually Authentic podcast. And
See
you
you soon.
Yeah.
Bye.